Welcome everyone, thank you for coming. My name's Anthony and I work for VALID, and VALID stands for Victorian Advocacy League for Individuals with Disability. VALID is an independent advocacy organisation for people with intellectual disabilities, adults with intellectual disabilities. We do a number of things, so when you get a chance, please come to our desk and find out what other services we provide. I just want to touch on a couple of things that we do. One is that we do have individual advocates who can support people with intellectual disabilities and their families if there's any issues. You might have an issue with the service provider or with the NDIA and you need some advice, you can always give us a ring on 9416 4003. Another thing that VALID do, and that's what I'm part of, is the self-advocacy team, and I mainly work with people with intellectual disabilities. And one of the things that we do is empower them to know about their rights and give information sessions so they're aware of what's going on in their local community as well as in the disability sector. This presentation that I'm going to present to you today is getting ready for the NDIS. It's in the form of easy English and plain English so that people with intellectual disabilities can know what's going on with the NDIS. So you look at the PowerPoint presentation, there's a lot of images and photos, and I use them to explain what the NDIS does. Okay. All right. The National Disability Insurance Scheme, or is called the NDIS for short. It's a long word, but NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, is the same thing. And the NDIS is here to provide a new way of providing support for people with disabilities and support. The NDIS is here to support people with disabilities to be part of the community and to do things in the community. And it's here for people for the rest of their lives. This slide is just basically saying that the NDIA stands for National Disability Insurance Agency, and they're the people that make sure that the NDIS is working. They're also here to work with the community and people with disabilities about the services that are out there for them. I'd just like to add, this presentation that I'm doing is the same presentation that the NDIA does. We just made it into easy English. Okay, here are some of the beliefs of the NDIS. One of them is that people with disabilities have equal rights to everyone in the community, and they should be supported to reach their goals, to learn, grow, and have a good life. The NDIA is also here and one of their beliefs is also to support people with disabilities to choose their services. So they're big on choice and control for people with disabilities. As you can see, there's an image over there. It's an image of a family. And basically the NDIS believe that family and carers are important for people with disabilities, and they should listen to families and support, and families should have the right to have a say in their child's plans. Okay, this is a slide that VALID has put in. It's basically regarding telling people with disabilities what their rights are. We're really big on rights, and we enforce that so people know what their rights are. So we concentrate on 4 rights. One is the right to freedom, the right to speak up, the right to choice, and the right to lead their own lives. These are the same beliefs, the same principles I believe from the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of a Person with a Disability and the National Disability Strategy. So the NDIS believe in that. Okay, here I explain to people with disabilities what are mainstream services, because the NDIS is here to support people to access mainstream services. And for a lot of people with disabilities, they're probably thinking, what are mainstream services? So we break it down. As you can see, we point other mainstream services for people with disabilities so they know what they are. Things like public transport, public housing, employment, education and justice. And the NDIS is here to support people with disabilities to access these services. Okay. The NDIS is also here to help provide what they call funded supports to help for people to reach their goals. And basically what funded supports are is staff support. In the slide here we have 3 different images. One on the top is a support worker supporting somebody to access public transport. Maybe the MyKey ticket machine, support that person to learn how to use the MyKey ticket machine and to catch the bus, which is in the background. So we encourage people to think about goals, things like how to be more independent in the community, things like learning how to use public transport. And the NDIS is here to support, pay for staff support so they can access these mainstream services. The second image is someone supporting someone to do the shopping. Again, NDIS will pay for staff support so that person can do their shopping, or if they need it's a bit of training to know where their local supermarket is and how to access it, and then eventually have the capacity building to learn how to shop for themselves. The last image is about someone learning a skill, learning the computer. So the NDIS is also here to might fund supports for people to learn a new skill, like learning how to access the internet or do a computer course. Okay, so the NDIS is also here to support people to be participating in community activities and groups. So we've got a couple of images there. One is of the library, so if anyone's interested in going to the libraries, they can put that in their plan to access the community. And the second image is of, well, some people say it's a baseball club, some people say it's a cricket club, but if there are groups out there that provide sporting activities, maybe somebody's not accessing a sporting activity, that could be a goal of theirs, and the NDIS is here to support them to participate in community groups. Things like if people want to go to the church, to the local church or synagogue or so on, the NDIS can help them with that and pay for the staff support so they can access these services and these community groups. And it's also here to help to arrange support you get from your family and friends. So I know recently I went to an NDIS planning meeting, and somebody lives in the north of Melbourne and has the only relative in Ballarat, and in his plan he said that he wanted to get the chance to visit her because they keep in contact every week by phone, but he hasn't been able to visit her. So that could be a goal as well. Okay, this slide's about what the NDIS doesn't fund. Supports that are not related to a person's disability, like asthma. Supports that you get from other systems, like Medicare. And day-to-day living costs that everyone pays for, like food, electricity, movie tickets. And I just remind people, because when I first started these sessions, people thought that their disability service pension, they won't be getting that anymore, but that's not the case. So the disability support pensions can pay for those everyday costs, and the NDIS is here to pay for your funded support, your staff supports. Okay. This is for people over 65. They're not going to be able to access the NDIS, but the government, Commonwealth Government, will still give them disability support. So they'll still get the same supports that they're getting at the moment. And they call this continuity of support. If you're on the NDIS scheme and you turn 65, you can still choose to stay on the NDIS, or you can go to the aged care system, but it's your choice, or that person's choice. All right, who can get the NDIS? Someone who has a permanent disability, which means a disability that won't go away, and who lives permanently in Australia and needs support to do everyday activities. Okay, what does the NDIS fund? Support that is reasonable and necessary, which help you reach your goals. and reasonable and necessary. So when I explain it to groups, I ask them, well, for some people, they might need 1 staff to support them. Is 10 staff too much? Yes, it's not reasonable and necessary for them to have 10 staff. But because it's a very individual scheme, for some people, they might need two people to support them. So therefore, for that person, it's reasonable and necessary for them to have 2 staff. And so for every individual, what's reasonable and necessary depends on the individual needs. All right, other things the NDIS might fund. Things like equipment. As you can see, there's a wheelchair on the screen, as well as a hoist to get in the car. So that's modifications. So the NDIS may, if someone can drive and has a disability, the NDIS won't pay for their car, but they may fund a hoist so they can access their car. And other things like any changes to a person's life, like if they need a ramp to get access to a house, or maintenance for the equipment, the NDIS will fund that because they might consider that reasonable and necessary. Okay. All right. So before the NDIS plan, we talk a lot about choices and things that they want to get out of life, things that they're not doing at the moment. And so there's a couple of images there. One is the image of art or guitar. So if someone has an interest in art, we start, and they're not accessing the service so they can do art, they might consider that in the NDIS plan. And then the NDIS, in the NDIS plan, they'll get a local area coordinator or support coordinator to support a person to access an art program in the community. Okay. And it's important that people with disabilities have control. So we say they should lead their plan, they should be supported to make decisions, and have choice in the staff that they want to work with, and for some people, where they want to live. Okay. So every NDIS participant will get a plan, and the plan will be looked at every 12 months. So this is an NDIS slide. It's basically saying that they use an individual approach, what you want to achieve, and then they find the supports to provide by other systems. Could be the health system, it could be community, it could be family, friends, and then they look at the NDIS funding supports, which are if it's reasonable and necessary. Okay. So the rollout of the NDIS around the Wyndham area. First, what will happen is that you will get, someone will give you a call, give you a ring, and get some information, and then someone else will ring about organising a time to have a meeting, and I suggest have a face-to-face meeting. This will happen before, the phone call will happen before October the 1st in 2018 for some people, and others might get the call in 2019. And so your first plan will give you the support you need now, and then time to look at things you might need in the next plan. So don't think just because you've done the plan and you've probably just put in the supports that you're getting now doesn't mean if in the future, if you think of other goals, you can't put it in your NDIS plan. Okay. All right, so some people might need support to help them get into the NDIS to make sure their plan is working. This is called a local area coordinator or support coordinator. So the NDIA will let people know who the local coordinators will be in the Brimback and Western Melbourne areas soon. So I haven't heard anything lately who your local area coordinators are. Those that live in group homes, DHHS group homes, the NDIA will support them and have meetings with them. For others, there will be a local area coordinator from who the NDIA decide. For other people who need some more extra support, they might get short-term support from a support coordinator. So those people that might have complex needs and so on, they might need extra support, then the NDIA might provide a support coordinator. Okay, there are different ways to manage your funding. For some people, so The way to look after the money in your plan can be different for each person. You can choose different ways to pay for your supports. You can have a mix of different ways to pay for your supports. So we've got the 3 circles there. One is self-management. So if you feel confident that you can self-manage yourself, then you got that option. For others, they may want to have the NDIA support management, support their plan. Or for others, they might not be happy with the NDIA, they can look elsewhere and look at a plan management provider. Okay. Yes, I think I've talked about this already. This is where in Brimbank and Melbourne areas, we'll start to get the NDIS from the 1st October. And these are some of the areas. So if you live in Melton, Hobsons Bay, Maribyrnong, Melbourne, Moonee Valley and Wyndham, services will start in 1st of October. Okay, so before you plan, we've got some suggestions. I always talk to people with disabilities and say, well, write down things you like and don't like, or get a staff to support you or your family members to support you. Things about what you want in life, and then these can be called goals. And of course, talk to your family and people you trust about your goals. For some people, goals can be scary. No one should tell you what to do, so we really encourage and empower people with disabilities to lead their plans, their goals. And you don't have to be grand things. It could be simple things, services that you're already getting, or if you want to join a club, if you're interested in something, small goals. It doesn't have to be huge, grand goals. And to make sure the goals help you work out what support you need. That's important. So during the NDIS planning meeting, make sure that you have all the supports that person needs, because don't think that the NDIA will know all that information in the meeting. So make sure you're prepared. Okay. So that is just a basic on the NDIS. Has anyone got any questions? Yep. They don't necessarily be registered for the NDIS, but when I'll show you this. Okay, all right. So if the agency manages your NDIS package, they have to be registered. But if you self-manage or you've got a provider that manage your NDIS, then you can suggest that I want a non-registered provider. So yes, but if it's through the NDIA, they won't provide the support unless they're registered. Okay. Yes.
How long does it take to go from the plan to the start of the plan?
That's a very good question. I think it's different for everybody. I don't quite know how long. Donna, would you know by any chance?
You're correct. It varies in every area and for different people.
Yeah.
There's no, for some people it takes a couple of weeks, for some, so you're saying you've had your plan meeting? No. So
Yeah.
the whole process could take a number of weeks, it could take quite a number of months.
Yeah.
We can't predict.
We can't predict.
Your experience with them.
Okay. Cool. All right. Okay, so again, if you have any other questions or you need support with your NDIS planning, you can always ring Valid, and we'll have somebody there who can answer some of your questions. And please also ring NDIA and talk to them as well and let them know if you're not happy. But we're also available. This is some of the things that we do. This course is for people with intellectual disabilities. So we go around and we talk about rights and responsibilities. We talk about self-advocacy and preparing for your planning. So preparing for the NDIS planning. So that's a course for people with intellectual disabilities. And Valid also has peer action groups around Victoria. and they're groups that people with disabilities and family members can join. They generally get together and have a shared interest or shared issue that they want to talk about. It might be something around their local community, or it could be around the NDIS, or it could be something like finding employment. So there's groups out there, so if anyone's out there who's interested in joining these peer action groups, you can always let us know. This slide here is about our Families as Planning Partners program. So Donna over there is part of the Families as Partners team at Valid. They run course on the NDIS and how to navigate the NDIS. So after today, you just got a basic idea what the NDIS is all about. If you want to know more information, you can and want to know a great deal about how to navigate the NDIS, you can come to one of our courses, and just to let you know, they're free of charge as well. Okay, so that's it. Thank you, everybody.